Hello, welcome to Papa's Snake Room. I was going to start this next video out with a best beginner snake, and I decided to go ahead and do a baby corn snake care guide because I'm sending a couple of babies out to my cousin here in a couple of days, and this way I don't have to type everything out and the video could be useful to other people. I want to start out with quarantine. The first thing you want to do when you get your babies is quarantine. You don't want them by your other snakes. You want to use gloves or wash your hands thoroughly before you handle your other snakes after handling the babies. I don't believe I have any diseases or mites. You got to take that precaution. It's you probably want to do it for at least 2 weeks, but a month I believe is recommended. I know it's hard to keep a separate area for your snakes, but it's you don't want to lose a whole collection to something that comes in from another breeder or whatever. To start out with, we want to look at the enclosure you're going to need, and your quarantine enclosure can also be used as your enclosure for the first couple months of the baby. I recommend up to at least 3 months you keep them in a tub, no substrate, paper towel, and this keeps things, bedding, things like that, ingesting it, and they have a harder time when they're young like that passing it. 3 months is maybe the minimum for me. 6 months, let's go 4 to 6 months is probably optimal. I'm going to show you a bin, kind of bin I use. These only cost, they're under $2 at Walmart. It just takes a little work to get them ready, and you can buy all the furnishings cheap and get started really cheap. And these are good for several months. This is what you want to keep your baby in for at least 3 months, up to 6 months. 6 months may be pushing it, but you have to see how much your snake grows. Alright, so this here's the tub I'm talking about. You want to drill some small holes in here. Remember, your snake's pretty small. Keep those holes, I'd say 5/32, 1/8 inch, 3/16 might be pushing it, but probably not. You just don't take a chance. You don't want them getting their head in there and getting stuck. All kinds of things like that can happen. I print my own water bowls and hides for babies, 3D print. But all you're going to do is take and put a paper towel down there. Trifold paper towels, or the 3-section paper towels, fit perfectly in here. You're going to water at one end, their hide at the other. You could even throw another hide in here. It's okay. You can also throw some fake plants and stuff in here, things for them to hide under. I just haven't found it actually necessary. They seem to be fine. They either go in their hide or they come out here. Having another on the cool side might be good. They tend to eat better in their hide, but you still have to go in there and check and make sure they ate if you do that. Even though they take the mouse, you don't know if they go back in their hide with it, if they ate it or if they dropped it. So you have to check. Corn snakes are escape artists. They will get out in ways you can't imagine right now, and you don't start imagining them until they do get out, and it's like the worst feeling ever. So you have to double, triple check your enclosure. Tubs are pretty easy to secure. So when they're really small like that, they're so hard to find if they get out. Permanent home. You can see behind me here, one thing about corn snakes is they do need a large permanent closure when they're an adult. They can be kept in tubs until they're, I don't know, maybe a year old, but you got to get larger tubs. A 4x2x2 is considered minimum. Mine back here are a little less than that. They're 4x2x18. I think that's okay. Mine seem to do fine. Basically, they need to be able to stretch out. But that's down the road. Once they're past that 3-4 month mark, up to 6 months, you can start moving them into glass aquariums. They do better than a lot of beginner snakes in glass aquariums. Lots of cover, 2 hides, one on the hot side, one on the cool side. And that's what I keep forgetting to mention is the temperatures. Temperatures are important, especially for babies. I've had babies regurgitate because of either wildly fluctuating temperatures, too high temperatures. I had a really cheap thermostat one time, and it fluctuated so much that it would get really hot, and my baby regurgitated like 2 times until I sat there with a temp gun and watched the temperature, and it was just way over temping. So a good thermostat, a good heat pad. They actually make really nice PVC cages. They're not that expensive, really. If you look around, you can find them under $300, and it's a really nice, secure place to keep your corn snakes. You can put lights in them. You can make them bioactive, whatever you want. They and they can look really good. The problem with aquariums is 40 gallon is like your standard, and it's just a little too small for an adult corn snake. You have to move up to, I don't even know the sizes after that. They got all kinds of sizes, but an aquarium is very heavy, and it doesn't keep any humidity hardly at all. You have to work on it to keep humidity in them. I really recommend a good PVC enclosure, or build your own. Substrate. A lot of people put their corn snakes on aspen. I use aspen. I'm not a fan of it. There's times I have to use it. My hog noses need pretty dry substrate. Corn snakes don't need it quite that dry, and I use cocoa chips. It will hold some humidity, but you can also let it dry out, and it makes a nice corn snake bedding. It doesn't hold too much humidity, let's just say that. But that's for your permanent enclosure, or when they get to be 6 months or so, you can put that. The thing about the cocoa chunks or cocoa chips is they don't get in their mouth. They're big enough that they don't get in their mouth and they don't swallow them. When they get bigger, they can deal with a little bit of substrate going down with their food, but when they're little, it could cause a problem. But for the beginning, when your baby's little, I really recommend you just keep them on paper towels or some kind of paper. They like to get under it. It's really easy to change out. You don't have to do a tub cleaning every time they poop. They poop on the paper. You pull the paper out, slide a new paper towel in, change the water, and you're good to go. That's good for your first 4 to 6 months. Now for feeding, I guess I'm going to lower the tripod again, and we're actually going to feed one. They aren't due to be fed till Monday, or it's tomorrow. They aren't due to be fed till tomorrow, but I'll pull one out here, and maybe I'll put the camera over by the rack and let you see how this goes. It's sometimes, depending on how many meals your snake has had from the breeder before you get it, it can be a little pain in the butt. Also, they might be feeding great for the breeder, and then you get it, and all of a sudden it's a big problem. They strike and don't take it. That can be frustrating, but you have to keep with it. The thing you want to figure out is, do you want a tong feed or do you want a drop feed? The good thing about tong feeding is you know that they've taken the food. You don't know that they've swallowed it, but you know that they've taken it. If you drop feed, what happens to me is I tend to forget sometimes that I drop something in there. Then if they don't eat it, next thing you know, you got a stinky mouse. So I prefer tong feeding. There are some snakes that just won't go for tong feeding. I don't have any right now, but I've had snakes in the past where I just had to leave the mouse or rat, whatever it is there, go away and let them do their thing. Corn snakes are a little bolder than some snakes. They're not quite that, and they're more curious. Usually you can get them to strike, and if you can get them to strike at the prey, eventually you can get them to eat it. All of my baby snakes that I send out are at least taking them off the tongs. And they say the minimum is 3 meals. It probably should be a little higher than that, but I would move a good feeder off to a new home if he ate 3 meals right off the tongs without too much hassle. I would sell a baby like that. Otherwise, they don't go anywhere until they're not being too frustrating. Okay, that didn't go how I planned. It actually went perfectly. That snake had a grade of B in his feeding in the past, and he just took it first time. What I wanted you to see was that they sometimes will strike multiple times, making you aggravated that he's not taking it. You have to pick the pinky back up and put it in front of his face again. You want to watch for that chomping motion. When they start actually chewing on it, then you got a good chance, but don't make any sudden moves. Just sit there and watch him until he's got it at least half down. Very slowly close the enclosure. You got to go back and check and make sure you didn't startle him and he dropped it. But this is a temporary stage. They get past this. Corn snakes are some of the best feeders out there. They will eat almost any time. They tend to not eat during shed, and males will not eat during breeding season, but I think that depends on if you have a female around. If your adult corn snake isn't eating for a long period of time, you probably need to go to a vet, because these snakes, like I said, they will eat anytime you feed them almost. That's another thing we got to talk about, is how much you feed them. If you talk to people in the UK, they say once every 6 weeks. A large mouse once every 6 weeks for an adult mouse, or for an adult corn snake. I think that's too long, too little. I wish I had gotten mine on a 2-week schedule instead of a 1-week schedule. I didn't know any better at the time. So if you want to, you can feed them a large mouse every 2 weeks. That's basically when they get to be an adult. You know, when they're big enough for an adult mouse, that's when you could start stretching it out. And you get them used to that feeding schedule, and you won't have too many problems with them getting overweight. An overweight snake, it's so hard to get them back down to weight. I've got one now that's really overweight, and I will probably never get her back down to a decent size. It shortens their lifespan. It's just not good for them. She can't even breed right now because she's too fat. She's just, I overfed her when she was gravid, and after she laid her eggs, I just fed her anytime she wanted, and she just packed it on, and she hasn't given me another clutch of eggs since. Now, when babies, I'm going to say until you increase their food size to, let's say, a hopper, You're going to want to do them every 4 to 5 days. You can easily do that every 5 days. I generally do it every 4 days, at least at first. It packs some weight on them, gets them strong and healthy. 5 days is not bad at all. 5 days, every 5 days, if they've already been established eaters, is fine. These brand new babies, you start off on day-old pinkies. Then as soon as they're big enough, you bring them up to pinky, regular pinky size. And they will stay on that for a little while. What I was told, and it still seems to hold true with babies, is when you feed them and you can see the bulge, the food item is big enough. If you feed them and you don't see the bulge anymore, you need to look at moving up. If you cannot move them up, if it doesn't look like they can handle that, then you give them 2 of the prey size you're giving them until you can get them to the next size. So basically what you want to do is watch for that bulge. After you feed them, you should see the good bulge. When you don't see that bulge, it's time to move up the feeding. Again, from day-old pinkies to regular pinkies, and then I believe hoppers are the next. And when they get on hoppers, that's when you can start looking at getting them into their next size enclosure. They're pretty much well established then. They will come and take the food from you anytime you offer it. Don't offer it too often. After you move them on to hoppers, you can move that out to once a week. When you move them up to small mice, that's when you could consider going every 2 weeks, but they're still growing at that stage. They've still got some growth to go. So me personally, I would keep it on a weekly basis. The problem is that is they'll get used to that. If you want to get them on a 2-week schedule, earlier would be better. I hope you come back and watch the next video. If you feel like it, give me a subscribe, hit that like button. So we'll see you next time.